Okay, now we are on to printing your freshly inked plate. I got the registration template that we made earlier. I also have, safely to this side, my collection of papers that are similar to what you guys received from me. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of newsprint from the collection. So here's one of those attractive pieces of newsprint, and I've got it set to my side. I don't have my gloves on anymore, so those guys are set over in the world of inking. And I want to talk to you about registration. That is how to help secure the paper to your registration template. If you happen to have any painter's tape at home, that's a friendly tape to be using for the purposes of temporarily holding your paper down. I'm going to put it over here for now. You can also use the masking tape that I included in your little kit. All right. So either of those tapes are going to work fairly well, but they're both going to want to, especially with thin paper, they're going to want to stick to your paper and rip it when you take it off. So what you can do is you can take the tape and just rub it against your clothing, maybe 1 time, 1.5 times. And then the fuzz from your clothing helps to prevent all of the sticky stuff from the tape attaching to your paper. So I've got those 2 semi-sticky pieces of tape ready to go. And I've also got my attractive drawer pulls. Some of you got a small one in your kit, some of you got a larger one. You can also try working with a wooden spoon from your kitchen or somebody else's. And you could also use, I don't know, I always call it a rice paddle. I don't know its formal name, but you could also use that. See how that works for making different printing pressures. But once you use it, I really don't think you should put it back into the kitchen unless you know perfectly well that none of the oil-based ink oozed into that fine wood. So I'm centering my plate in my registration little area. Then I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to line one of its short ends with the short dimension of my drawn rectangle. And then I lay it down and I give it a loving tap. And I'm going to do that one more time just because I feel like it. And I'm going to take those 2 little pieces of tape. I have my hand still on my plate, very lightly, and I'm putting that down just to help kind of keep it in place. So if you want to try this, I'm really curious about this paddle, and I'm going to take it and kind of using this part of the paddle, back part of the wood, and I'm pressing down. I'll talk about dog pressure again. If I did this pressure to a St. Bernard, it would barely know I'm really pressing down on St. Bernard at all. If I did this to a small Chihuahua mix, my favorites, it would know that you were pressing down on it, but it wouldn't be angry. It would think, yeah, that's pretty nice. So it's not a Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of pressure. It's just enough pressure to think to yourself, you're squishing the paper down against that wonderful layer of ink that you just rolled out. And my rubbing pattern is overlapping circular motions. And I keep my opposing hand always on some area of the plate, just lightly. Okay, so then I put that opposing hand to the back of the plate, and then I lift this up to see if it's printing. And by gum, it is. And what you'll notice is that some areas, it's not a pure black. It's kind of a salty ink patterning that's occurring. So if you want it to be a solid black, what you'll do is just go ahead and let that roll back down. Don't think too hard about it. Just let it roll back down, and then grab your fantastic drawer pull and use that same sort of circular patterning, and you go over those areas where you had seen the salting that you didn't want. All right, so you just need to realize that this is one of the cool aspects of hand printing, is that some people will choose to have that salting pattern in some parts of their print, and then in others they'll use their drawer pull and they will burnish really consistent saturated black. So that's one of the nice aspects of printing by hand. You also notice, I don't know if you can catch that, Brome, but the paper kind of gets a little bit shiny from me rubbing against the fibers of the paper. All right, so again, whenever you're curious, you should take a peek. That's always the best thing. So again, I'm keeping one hand, my opposing hand, in the back, and then I'm taking a look. So slowly they're starting to kind of fill in. All right, like I didn't really burnish down here at the bottom, so you can see that salting. Whereas up here I was burnishing with greater pressure. It's more consistent of a black. So let's take a look at this proof. So this is my first print, and as always, it's the mirror image of what's on my plate, and it's providing, I think, this burnishing process, a really good indication of what the carved plate image really looks like. So just as before, like when you were printing in the lab, when you're ready to pull another print, you're going to take this beauty back over to your Inky World. You're going to put your gloves back on. Always have your gloves on, especially when you're at home, because you do not want to inadvertently start getting this luscious black ink all over your beloved people's clothing or couch or poodle. So I put my gloves back on, and then I can come back to the plate and go ahead and recharge the plate. Trying to keep to that same sort of tight, glistening pattern. And remember that if it's starting to look matte out here, you're going to come back over here and you're going to grab a little bit. This is almost like, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. And you're going to take it across in a nice, thin, even rand, and you're going to recharge. Always letting that little brayer spin around, going back and forth. Always lifting it when it comes close to you, and then go back over here. And I'm kind of finding it's, for this plate with this teeny little brayer, it's pretty successful rolling from the center out. Because as I said, this brayer is so little it wants to drop into my negative areas. So we'll try that one more time. So I got my gloves. I'm going to pull this puppy up. Ooh, quick release. I'm going to set my print here. And then let's try this puppy. I got this. And I gave you guys this really thin, oh, I forgot the type of paper. We'll call it the crazy paper. It's really thin. Very, very, very thin. So this, we're just going to ad-lib. Just put it down. So I just laid it down there. If I did the burnishing on here, the inks just kind of come right through that paper. So what I do is I grab a sheet of newsprint, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just gently, with my hand, barely any pressure, press down that really thin sheet. That's a bad piece of paper. I'm going to get a different piece of paper. Grab this one, and I'm going to put it there. I'm going to set these guys back down. These are just kind of give me a little bit of security. And now I've got protection for that really thin piece of paper that I initially laid down. So I go through this same process, and you can immediately use the drawer pull if you like. You do not have to find a wooden spoon or a wooden paddle. I just happen to like this now, I realize. But you could just start out with your drawer pull. Whichever one seems the most interesting to you, you can do that. This one, because it's so small, you're going to have to show a little bit of patience with it because all those little semicircles need to cruise over each other to give you an even black across all the areas of your plate. So again, my opposing hand is always atop of the paper and the plate, so nobody slides away from each other. That's how I can keep them registered. All right, so let's see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to lift this back, and you can see the paper's so thin that it's just allowing all the ink to come through it. I can tell, actually, just looking at it, that I missed a spot. So this area I really didn't burnish. So I'm going to lay this back down. And it's just like on the press. Once you move that piece of paper, it's really unlikely that you're going to be able to re-register it. I mean, once you remove the tape and lift the paper away. So take the time to kind of peek, do your printmaker's peek, to see that things are going the way you want before you pick everything up. You kind of see those shiny marks. Okay, let's take a look. So put this across. And let's go for it. I'm gonna lift this up. And there's my teeny little print. Ooh, that is really lightweight paper. Almost flies away. So there is, ooh, I'll turn it that way.
Look at this.
So there are the two. So the first one, the proof on the newsprint, and then the one on this really lightweight paper. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy trying the different paper types out. Know that the piece of newsprint can act as a way of preventing your paper, the thinner paper, from tearing as you're doing the burnishing. And I do need to back up there. You guys were doing these wonderful rubbings while you were carving. What I'm going to suggest is when you get to that point where you want to ink it, please give yourself the opportunity to pull that proof, and then we'll go over how to clean up, but to clean it up and then to go ahead and do some more carving, because you're probably going to be just adjusting a few things, and then you'll come back, ink it up, and pull your final prints, all right? So I'm at a point with my other plate that I will be doing that with you. But this is just an overview of what to plan for in terms of setting yourselves up. So what we're going to do next is clean up. Thank you.